Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. A middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair shifted uncomfortably on the couch, eyeing the large gift box in his lap with trepidation. The tag read, "To my dear son-in-law, Jake. Merry Christmas. Love, Edna." He glanced at his mother-in-law, a plump woman with twinkling eyes who sat across from him, practically vibrating with excitement. "Go on, open it," Edna urged, clasping her hands together. "I just know you'll love it." Jake forced a smile, trying to mask his unease. Edna's gifts were notoriously unpredictable. Last year, she'd given him a set of leopard print oven mitts. The year before that, it was a collection of erotic poetry featuring farm animals. He braced himself for whatever oddity awaited him this time. With a deep breath, Jake tore into the wrapping paper. He lifted the lid of the box, pushed aside a layer of tissue paper, and froze. His heart hammered in his chest as he stared at the contents, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. "Well?" Edna leaned forward eagerly. "What do you think?" Jake's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. His fingers trembled as he lifted the garment from the box. It unfurled before him. A dress. Not just any dress, but a stunning emerald green cocktail dress with a sweetheart neckline and a flared skirt that would hit just above the knee. The room fell silent. All eyes were on Jake as he held the dress, his face a mask of shock and confusion. His wife, Amanda, gasped softly beside him. "Mom," she hissed, "what were you thinking?" Edna waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, hush. I saw how Jake's eyes lingered on that dress in the department store window last month when we were shopping. I figured he was too shy to buy it for himself, so I thought I'd help him out." Jake's face burned with embarrassment. He wanted to sink into the floor and disappear. How had Edna noticed? He'd been so careful, stealing only the briefest of glances at the dress as they passed by. It was a secret he'd kept buried deep inside for years. His fascination with women's clothing, the way it made him feel both excited and terrified. And now, in one fell swoop, Edna had dragged it into the open for his entire family to see. I don't, Jake stammered, unable to form a coherent thought. Amanda placed a gentle hand on his arm. "It's okay, honey. We don't have to talk about this now." But Edna was undeterred. "Nonsense! There's nothing to be ashamed of. Why, I remember when Roger here first told me about his love for silk stockings. It opened up a whole new world for us." All heads swiveled to Roger, Edna's husband, who had been quietly sipping his eggnog in the corner. He choked mid-sip, sputtering and coughing. "Edna!" He wheezed, his face turning as red as the Christmas stockings hung by the fireplace. "We agreed never to speak of that." The tension in the room broke as laughter erupted. Jake's father, Steve, clapped Roger on the back, tears of mirth streaming down his face. "Well, well, old boy, looks like you've been holding out on us." As the laughter died down, Jake found himself still clutching the dress. His initial shock had faded, replaced by a strange mix of emotions. There was still embarrassment, yes, but also a sense of relief. His secret was out, and the world hadn't ended. His family wasn't recoiling in horror or disowning him on the spot. Amanda squeezed his hand. "Are you okay?" she whispered. Jake took a deep breath and nodded. "I think so. It's just a lot to process." Edna leaned forward, her expression softening. "Jake, dear, I hope I haven't overstepped. I just wanted you to know that it's okay to be yourself. Life's too short to hide who you are." Jake looked at the dress again, running his fingers over the soft fabric. It really was beautiful. He'd imagined wearing something like this so many times, but never dared to act on it. Now, here it was, right in his hands. "Thank you, Edna," he said softly. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll try it on!" Edna clapped her hands excitedly. "I'm dying to see how it looks." Jake's eyes widened. "Now, in front of everyone?" Amanda stood up, tugging Jake to his feet. Come on, let's go upstairs. You can try it on in private if you want. Relief washed over Jake. He nodded gratefully and followed Amanda out of the living room, still clutching the dress. As they climbed the stairs, he could hear the murmur of conversation resuming below. In the safety of their bedroom, Jake stood awkwardly, unsure of what to do next. Amanda closed the door and turned to him with a gentle smile. "So," she said, "how long have you been wanting to wear dresses?" Jake sank onto the edge of the bed, the dress pooled in his lap.
"I don't know. Forever, I guess. I never thought I'd actually do it, though."
Amanda sat beside him, placing a comforting hand on his back.
"Why didn't you tell me?"
"I was scared," Jake admitted. "I thought you'd think I was a freak."
"That everyone would."
"Oh, honey." Amanda wrapped her arms around him. "You're not a freak. You're you, and I love you no matter what you wear." Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He leaned into Amanda's embrace, overcome with gratitude for her acceptance. After a moment, Amanda pulled back with a mischievous grin. "So, are you going to try it on or what?" Jake chuckled nervously.
"I guess I should, huh? Edna went to all this trouble."
With trembling hands, Jake began to undress. Amanda helped him slip the dress over his head, zipping it up in the back. When Jake turned to look in the full-length mirror, his breath caught in his throat. The dress fit perfectly, hugging his waist and flaring out over his hips. The color brought out the green flecks in his hazel eyes. For the first time in his life, Jake felt truly seen. Not as the person he pretended to be, but as the person he'd always been inside. "You look amazing," Amanda said softly, standing behind him in the mirror. Jake's eyes welled with tears.
"I feel amazing."
They stood there for a long moment, taking in the sight. Then Amanda grinned and held out her hand.
"Ready to go downstairs and knock their socks off?"
Jake took a deep breath and nodded, taking her hand. Together, they descended the stairs. The conversation in the living room died as Jake entered. All eyes were on him as he stood there, heart pounding, waiting for someone to speak. It was Steve who broke the silence.
"Well, I'll be damned,"
he said, a slow smile spreading across his face.
"You look good, son."
The tension in the room dissolved. Edna clapped her hands in delight, rushing over to adjust the skirt and fuss with Jake's hair. Roger raised his glass in a toast, while Amanda beamed proudly at her husband's side. As the initial excitement died down and the family settled back into their seats, Jake found himself relaxing. He smoothed his hands over the dress, marveling at how natural it felt. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the clinking of glasses. "You know," Edna said suddenly, a mischievous glint in her eye, "Jake's dress isn't the only surprise I have up my sleeve tonight." All eyes turned to her expectantly. Jake felt a mix of curiosity and trepidation. What else could Edna possibly have in store? With a flourish, Edna produced 2 more gift boxes from behind her chair. "Steve, Roger, these are for you." Jake's father and Edna's husband exchanged bewildered looks as they accepted the boxes. Jake had a sneaking suspicion he knew what was inside. Sure enough, as Steve and Roger opened their gifts, identical looks of shock spread across their faces. Steve pulled out a deep blue cocktail dress with a beaded neckline, while Roger held up a slinky red number with a daring slit up the side. "Edna?" Roger sputtered, his face turning as red as the dress. "What in the world?" Edna grinned triumphantly. "Well, I couldn't let Jake have all the fun, could I? Besides, Roger, dear, I know you've always had a thing for red." The room erupted in laughter once again. Steve held his dress up against his chest, striking an exaggerated pose. "What do you think, honey? Do I have the legs for it?" His wife, Margaret, wiped tears of mirth from her eyes. "Oh, absolutely. You'll be the belle of the ball." As the laughter died down, Jake looked around the room at his family. The atmosphere had changed, becoming lighter, more open. Secrets that had been hidden for years were now out in the open, met not with judgment but with acceptance and humor. Edna stood up, raising her glass. "I propose a toast," she said, her eyes twinkling, "to new beginnings, to being true to ourselves and to family who love us no matter what we wear." Everyone raised their glasses, echoing the sentiment. As Jake sipped his champagne, he felt a warmth spreading through him that had nothing to do with the alcohol. For the first time in his life, he felt truly accepted, truly free to be himself. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter, stories, and more than a few impromptu fashion shows. Steve and Roger, emboldened by the spirit of the evening, and perhaps a bit too much eggnog, eventually gave in to Edna's urging and tried on their dresses. The sight of his father twirling in a blue cocktail dress, his mustache quivering with laughter, was one Jake knew he'd never forget. As the night wore on and the party began to wind down, Edna gathered everyone's attention once more. "I have one last announcement," she said, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "I'm throwing a New Year's Eve party, and everyone is expected to wear their new outfits." There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by a chorus of laughter and good-natured protests. Jake looked down at his emerald dress, smoothing his hands over the fabric. The thought of wearing it again, in public no less, sent a thrill of excitement and nervousness through him. Amanda leaned in close, whispering in his ear, "What do you think? Are you up for it?" Jake took a deep breath, looking around at his family. Steve was already discussing accessory options with Margaret, while Roger examined his reflection in the window, striking poses. The atmosphere was one of joy, acceptance, and love. With a smile, Jake turned to Amanda and nodded. "You know what? I think I am." As the party wound down and guests began to depart, Jake found himself alone with Edna in the kitchen, helping to clean up. He watched as she hummed to herself, rinsing glasses in the sink, and felt a surge of affection for this unconventional, loving woman who had changed his life in a single evening. "Edna," he said softly, causing her to turn. "I just wanted to say thank you for everything." Edna's eyes softened as she dried her hands on a dish towel. "Oh, Jake," she said, pulling him into a warm hug. "You don't need to thank me. I just want you to be happy, to be yourself." As they pulled apart, Jake asked the question that had been nagging at him all evening. "How did you know? About the dress, I mean." Edna's eyes twinkled. "A mother always knows, dear. Even a mother-in-law. I've seen the way you look at certain clothes, the longing in your eyes. Life's too short to deny yourself joy, Jake. I just gave you a little push." Jake nodded, feeling a lump form in his throat. "It's just, I never thought I could have this, that anyone would understand." "Oh, honey," Edna said, patting his cheek. "You'd be surprised how many people are hiding parts of themselves. Sometimes all it takes is one person to be brave enough to go first. You've opened a door tonight, not just for yourself, but for others too." As if on cue, Steve wandered into the kitchen, still wearing his blue cocktail dress. He struck a pose in the doorway, hand on his hip. "Ladies, be honest. Does this make my butt look big?" Jake and Edna dissolved into laughter, Steve joining in after a moment. As Jake wiped tears of mirth from his eyes, he marveled at how much had changed in just one evening. The weight of his secret, carried for so long, had lifted, replaced by a sense of lightness and possibility. The days leading up to New Year's Eve were a whirlwind of activity. Jake found himself spending more time in dresses than he ever had before, trying on different styles and experimenting with accessories. Amanda was supportive every step of the way, offering advice on makeup and helping him practice walking in heels. To Jake's surprise, his father became an unexpected ally in his journey. Steve showed up one afternoon with a stack of fashion magazines and a determined glint in his eye. "All right, son," he said, spreading the magazines out on the coffee table. "If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Now, what do you think about a statement necklace to go with that dress?" As they pored over the magazines together, Jake felt a newfound closeness with his father. They laughed over outrageous runway looks and debated the merits of different shoe styles. It was a side of his father Jake had never seen before, and he treasured every moment. The night of Edna's New Year's Eve party arrived sooner than Jake expected. As he stood in front of the mirror, putting the finishing touches on his outfit, he barely recognized himself. The emerald dress fit like a glove, accentuated by a delicate silver necklace and a pair of low heels. Amanda had helped him with subtle makeup, enhancing his features without overwhelming them. "You ready?" Amanda asked, appearing in the doorway. She looked stunning in a black cocktail dress, her hair swept up in an elegant updo. Jake took a deep breath, smoothing down his dress one last time. "As I'll ever be," he said with a nervous smile. They arrived at Edna and Roger's house to find the party in full swing. The living room had been transformed into a glittering wonderland, with silver and gold decorations catching the light. Music played softly in the background, nearly drowned out by the sound of laughter and conversation. As Jake and Amanda entered, a hush fell over the room. For a moment, Jake's old fears resurfaced. He fought the urge to turn and run, to hide away from all the staring eyes. Then Edna appeared, resplendent in a purple sequined gown. "Jake, darling!" she exclaimed, air-kissing his cheeks. "You look absolutely fabulous." Her enthusiastic greeting broke the tension. Suddenly, Jake was surrounded by friends and family, all offering compliments and admiring his outfit. He felt himself relax, buoyed by their acceptance and genuine warmth. As he made his way through the crowd, Jake spotted his father by the punch bowl. Steve cut a striking figure in his blue dress, accessorized with a chunky silver bracelet and a pair of surprisingly stylish flats. "Looking good, son," Steve said with a wink as Jake approached. "Looks like we clean up pretty well, huh?" Jake laughed, clinking his glass against his father's. "That we do, Dad. That we do." The party was a roaring success. Jake found himself dancing, laughing, and enjoying himself more than he had in years. He twirled on the dance floor with Amanda, shared jokes with Roger, who had fully embraced his red dress, complete with a feather boa, and even gave impromptu fashion advice to some of the other guests who expressed interest in exploring their own style boundaries. As midnight approached, Edna called for everyone's attention. She stood on a small stage that had been set up in the corner of the room, microphone in hand. "Friends, family," she began, her voice filled with emotion. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight and for embracing the spirit of this party with such open hearts and minds." She paused, her eyes scanning the room before landing on Jake. "When I gave Jake that first dress on Christmas, I hoped it might help him feel more comfortable being himself. What I didn't expect was how it would open all of our eyes to the beauty of self-expression and acceptance." Jake felt Amanda squeeze his hand as Edna continued. "Tonight, I see a room full of people who aren't afraid to be who they are, who support and love each other, regardless of what they wear or how they choose to express themselves. And that, my dears, is the greatest gift of all." Cheers erupted around the room. Jake felt tears prick at his eyes, overwhelmed by the love and acceptance surrounding him. "So," Edna said, raising her glass, "as we count down to the new year, let's make a toast to being true to ourselves, to supporting each other, and to a future where everyone feels free to express who they really are." The room filled with the sound of clinking glasses and murmured agreement. As the countdown to midnight began, Jake looked around at the faces of his friends and family. He saw joy, acceptance, and love reflected back at him. When the clock struck 12 and cheers of "Happy New Year" filled the air, Jake felt as though he was stepping into more than just a new year. He was stepping into a new life, one where he could truly be himself. As the party continued into the early hours of the morning, Jake found a quiet moment alone on the balcony. He looked out at the star-filled sky, the cool night air brushing against his skin. Amanda joined him, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked softly. Jake smiled, leaning back into her embrace. "I was just thinking about how much has changed. A week ago, I was terrified of anyone finding out about this part of me. And now you're the belle of the ball, Amanda finished, her voice warm with pride. Jake turned to face her, taking her hands in his.
I couldn't have done this without you, you know. Your support means everything to me.
Amanda reached up, gently wiping away a tear that had escaped down Jake's cheek. I love you, Jake. All of you. And I'm so proud of you for having the courage to be yourself. As they stood there, the sounds of the party drifting out to them, Jake felt a sense of peace settle over him. He knew there would be challenges ahead. The world wasn't always as accepting as his family and friends. But for the first time in his life, he felt ready to face those challenges head on, secure in who he was and surrounded by love and support. Happy New Year, Amanda, he whispered, leaning in for a kiss. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.